Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost, and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Is the AI boom a bubble, and is it set to burst? Experts are advising caution, markets are issuing warnings, but is Silicon Valley listening? Tonight we'll discuss why the revolution may be staring at an anti-climax. In the US, they've rolled out the red carpet for a man they called a terrorist until last year. Who is the Syrian president, and why does his visit to the White House mark a major geopolitical shift? What's the new law in Pakistan that's being seen as a constitutional coup by Asim Munir? Delhi pollution is not a local issue, it's a national problem that no political party seems serious about solving. What's the big terror haul in India? 2,900 kilos of explosives and AK-47s recovered. We'll tell you all about it, also tracking the explosion near the Red Fort. Why former President Suharto has been declared a national hero by Jakarta, and why Indonesians are angry about it. Why India is warning about digital gold. What's the edited Trump clip that forced the BBC's top bosses to resign? Who is the Philippines? In fact, how the Philippines is grappling with its 21st typhoon this year as world leaders meet in Brazil to pay lip service to climate change. And why are Indian brands saying sorry? All this and more lined up. The headlines first. In India, a car explosion near Delhi's Red Fort kills at least 8 people. Several others have been injured. The blast triggered a fire that damaged nearby vehicles. Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks with Union Home Minister Amit Shah. A high alert has been sounded in the capital and other major cities. Attackers in Bangladesh set off crude petrol bombs across the capital. A building linked to interim leader Mohammad Yunus was targeted. No injuries have been reported so far. Dhaka police have arrested one person. Authorities claim the suspect is a member of the student wing of the outlawed Awami League, the party of Sheikh Hasina. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy freed from prison after just 20 days. A judge ordered his release pending an appeal hearing. In September, Sarkozy was sentenced to 5 years behind bars. He was found guilty of trying to get campaign funding from the late Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi. President Draupadi Murmu is on a 4-day state visit to Angola. She addressed their parliament, hailing the quote-unquote unlimited possibilities between India and Angola. This is the first ever visit by an Indian president to the southwestern African country. India is one of Angola's top trading partners. And US envoy Jared Kushner meets Israeli Prime Minister in Jerusalem. Donald Trump's son-in-law urges Benjamin Netanyahu to ensure that the fragile ceasefire in Gaza holds. The truce has been in effect since the 10th of October. The next stage involves Hamas's disarmament, but the group insists that it will not give up its weapons. We start with a big story from Delhi. A deadly car blast has rocked the national capital. It happened a short while back. At least 8 people have been killed, plus several others have been injured. The explosion happened near the Red Fort, specifically at a red light near the metro station there. As you can see, the pictures show a car engulfed in a fireball. There's not a lot of information at this point, but here's what the Delhi Police Commissioner has said. At around 7 p.m. local time, a slow-moving vehicle stopped at the red light. Suddenly, it exploded into a fireball. Even vehicles beside it were damaged in the blast. Multiple agencies are on the ground right now, including the NSG, that's the National Security Guard, and the NIA, the National Investigation Agency. Both Home Minister Amit Shah and Prime Minister Narendra Modi are monitoring this incident. As things stand, we don't know how this blast happened, but the incident itself is worrying because Red Fort is the heart of Delhi. Every year, the Indian Prime Minister delivers his yearly Independence Day address from there. We are told the entire area around the Red Fort has been sealed off. 7 fire tenders were rushed to the scene. They are still dousing the flames. Local authorities have urged citizens to stay away from the area. This is a developing story We'll keep tracking the updates for you. As of now, these are the pictures that we have, and we advise viewer discretion. These pictures can be disturbing. A massive blast with a car going up in fire in the heart of the national capital, and the cars around it also caught fire. This was near a red light at the metro station. As you can see, there is absolute panic and chaos at the moment. The top agencies, investigation agencies in Delhi are at the spot, and according to reports, some 20 people have been admitted to hospital. This is a developing story. We'll keep coming back to it as we get more information. As of now, we can tell you that there has been a massive blast in the national capital. Meanwhile, India's security forces busted a terror cell today. They seized nearly 3 tons of explosive material, which is enough to wipe out entire neighborhood blocks. This operation happened in Jammu and Kashmir. 7 suspects are in custody. So far, no connection has been established between this operation and the blast in Delhi, but the police say that this was not a small local cell. This was an organized interstate network, one with links to known terror groups. In fact, investigators have given it a name. They call it a white-collar module, a network run by educated professionals who used encrypted tools and advanced technology to plot terror attacks. Here is a report.
Police in Jammu and Kashmir have uncovered a massive terror plot. 7 locals have been arrested, and nearly 2,900 kilograms of explosive material has been seized. This is one of India's largest recent hauls. The numbers are staggering: explosives, chemicals and wires, electronic circuits, remote triggers and batteries. Everything needed to make deadly IEDs. The raids were carried out across several districts and beyond the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. It was a joint operation between the local police and forces from other Indian states. Investigators say the group was part of an interstate terror module. They believe it had links to Jaish-e-Mohammed and Ansar Ghazwat-ul-Hind. The goal: to carry out coordinated bomb attacks across multiple cities. The seizure wasn't limited to chemicals. Weapons were found too: a Chinese Star pistol, a Beretta pistol, an AK-56 rifle, and an AK Krinkov. All were recovered during follow-up searches. The investigation began in October. Posters appeared in Jammu and Kashmir. They carried threats aimed at security forces. Those posters triggered the first leads. Within days, police traced an online network behind them. That trail led to the arrests. Charges have now been filed under the UAPA, India's anti-terror law. Police call it one of the most complex cases they've handled. They say the suspects were part of a white-collar terror ecosystem: radicalized professionals, educated, well-connected, and tech-savvy. They used encrypted apps to plan and recruit, and they moved money through legitimate channels. Among those arrested are 2 doctors, both accused of using their professional networks for funding and logistics. Police say they played a key role in procurement and coordination. The material seized could have been catastrophic: 2,900 kilograms of explosive compounds, enough to build dozens of powerful IEDs or sustain multiple attacks over weeks. It's a reminder of how close such plots can get to reality. For years, India's security agencies have warned about a shift in terror tactics, from border infiltration to homegrown radicalization, from open training camps to covert cells, from weapons smuggling to chemical sourcing. This case captures that change: highly educated recruits, encrypted communication, professional fronts masking extremist networks. The operation also shows how coordination has evolved. Different state forces work together. Real-time intelligence sharing made the breakthrough possible. Without that, officials say the plot might have gone undetected. For investigators, this is only the beginning. They are now tracing the money trail. They want to know who funded the purchases and where the materials came from. For ordinary people, the story is a warning. Terror networks no longer operate in shadows alone. They hide in plain sight, in universities, hospitals, and digital platforms. This is the new face of extremism. But for now, there is one success, and a major plot has been stopped before it began. It's a victory for India's security forces and a reminder: the threat may change, but it never disappears.
Meanwhile, we continue to track the big story from Delhi. A deadly car blast rocked the national capital a short while back. At least 8 people have been killed. Several others have been injured and moved to hospitals. The explosion happened near the Red Fort, specifically at a red light near the metro station there. As you can see, the pictures show a car engulfed in a ball of fire. There's limited information as to what happened and how it happened, but here's what the Delhi Police Commissioner has said. At around 7 p.m. local time, a slow-moving vehicle stopped at the red light. Suddenly, it exploded into a fireball. Even vehicles beside it were damaged in the blast. Multiple agencies are on the ground right now as we speak, including the NSG. That's the National Security Guard, and the NIA, the National Investigation Agency. They're both at the spot. Both Home Minister, Union Home Minister Amit Shah and Prime Minister Narendra Modi are monitoring this incident. As things stand, we do not know how this blast happened, but the incident itself is worrying because the Red Fort is the heart of Delhi. And we are told that the entire area around the Red Fort has now been sealed off. 7 fire tenders were rushed to the scene. They are still trying to douse the flames. Local authorities have urged citizens to stay away from the area. This is a developing story, and we'll be tracking the updates for you here on Firstpost.
बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट हुआ है लाल किले के सामने अभी 1 मिनट पहले।
Now let's talk about a warning sign flashing across global markets. One word that is shaking stocks, that is making investors jittery: artificial intelligence. But it's not the power or promise of AI that is making everyone nervous. It is the fear of an AI bubble. Tech CEOs are talking about it. Banks are warning about it. This is the biggest tech boom since the dot-com era, and it is now facing its first real crisis of confidence. Trillions have been bet on AI, but have we gone too far, too fast? To understand that, let's go back to where it began. In 2022, a quiet storm hit the internet, a chatbot called ChatGPT. It wrote essays, it did coding, and it cracked jokes. We thought we were looking at a fun toy. Turns out we were only scratching the surface. Fast forward 3 years, and AI is not just a buzzword, it is Silicon Valley's favorite term. From Wall Street traders to Silicon Valley founders, everyone has been betting big on one thing: AI being the future. For 2 straight years, the Valley's champagne never stopped fizzling. Startups minted a lot of money, valuations skyrocketed, there were billion-dollar announcements every week. Then suddenly, things began looking a little shaky. The fizz gave way to froth. And last week, global markets plunged. $730 billion were lost in a day. $730 billion in one day. The Nasdaq went down. Asian markets were in the red. It looked like investors had finally taken off their rose-tinted glasses. The AI hype was great, but there was also a question looming. Is it really a boom or a bubble? Like I said, ChatGPT burst into the scene in 2022, and since then, AI stocks added more than $17.5 trillion in market value. You heard that right, $17.5 trillion. That's roughly 75% of the S&P 500's total gains. This is a list of 500 largest publicly traded companies in America, the S&P 500. And if that wasn't enough, companies made eye-watering pledges. There was $500 billion for the Stargate project. It involved OpenAI, SoftBank, and Oracle. NVIDIA and OpenAI came together for a $100 billion deal. NVIDIA became a $5 trillion company. Microsoft poured billions into OpenAI, and China was not far behind, of course. Tencent and Alibaba, the Chinese giants, ramped up their spending to meet Beijing's 2030 AI supremacy goal. So companies betted big on artificial intelligence, and billions were poured in. It was like AI was the next electricity. But by the middle of this year, the cracks began to appear. Corporate AI adoption began slipping. And this is according to a US survey. It shows AI usage at large firms fell from June to August. It showed the fall. Companies are also becoming more cautious, especially about AI hallucinations. Then there's the balance sheet. Some numbers feel fictional until you check twice. OpenAI's revenue last year was $3.7 billion, and their operating expenses, $8 to $9 billion. This gap may only grow wider because by 2029, OpenAI is set to spend $129 billion. But where is the return? Currently, they're betting on AGI, artificial general intelligence, but that is still a few years away. So until then, OpenAI will be burning money, and that's the case with most AI companies, in fact. One economist estimates that AI capital misallocation may be worth 65% of US GDP. 65% of US GDP. Then came the wobble. A week of shaking knees on global markets. Nasdaq was down by 2%, S&P 500 down by 1%. Every single Magnificent Seven stock was down. That's NVIDIA, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Tesla, Alphabet, and Meta. Together, they're called the Magnificent Seven, and they all fell. Palantir fell by 8%. SoftBank lost $50 billion in a week, and even bank chiefs joined the choir. They said, we should be alert to an AI bubble. But what exactly is a bubble? Well, think of a bubble as financial FOMO. That's the fear of missing out. It usually starts with a big idea, say the internet or crypto, and now AI. Money floods in, valuations skyrocket, founders speak in metaphors, analysts nod vigorously. Everyone believes that they're staring at the future, and everyone wants a piece of it. So prices rise because of expectations. But suddenly, one day someone asks, is it really making us any money? And that's when the bubble becomes apparent. Confidence trickles out, money follows, and suddenly it's no longer the future. So is this really an AI bubble? Well, the answer is both no and yes. No, because AI is the future, that's undeniable. It will change the world. In fact, it already is changing the world. Also, artificial intelligence is powered by real tech. That's why the no. But also yes, because AI is still not making money. Investors have put in billions, but the real gains, if they come at all, may take 5 to 10 years to come. Meanwhile, the costs are ballooning. So like I said, we're in the messy middle. The hype is cooling, the money is sweating, and the technology is still taking shape. Will this end like the dot-com bust? Or is this just a mid-course correction before the next big leap? We will have to wait and watch. We can see that the market is issuing a warning, but we are not sure if Silicon Valley will listen. Now let's shift our attention to Washington, D.C. Something extraordinary is happening there. A man once designated a terrorist is about to walk into the White House. We're talking about the president of Syria, Ahmad al-Shara. Just over a decade ago, the U.S. had placed a bounty on his head. $10 million were on offer for al-Sharah's capture. But today the tables have turned. The US is welcoming the same man as a partner, and it's a historic moment. This is for the first time that a Syrian president will visit the White House, the first time ever. It's a dramatic turnaround. This time last year, Bashar al-Assad was still in power in Syria. In December 2024, al-Sharah's forces stormed Damascus, the capital of Syria. It led to the ouster of Bashar al-Assad. And after 14 years of war, Syria got a new leader, Ahmad al-Sharah. Then in May this year, the US president met him, President Donald Trump. He met al-Sharah. It was their first meeting. It happened in Riyadh. Days later, Washington lifted the sanctions on Syria and the United Nations followed suit. So did Britain and Europe. Al-Sharah's name was removed from the global terror watch list. Cut to November 2025, the same man is being welcomed at the White House. So this visit, today's visit, could cap off the turnaround. It could mark the beginning of a wider shift. Syria is about to enter the American orbit. The Syrian government could join the US-led coalition against ISIS. It's the military alliance that has been fighting ISIS in Syria. It was formed in 2014. 89 countries are its members. But Syria is not one of them. That could change today. Syria could join this coalition. It's the group that changed the course of the Syrian war. You may remember how it played out. A decade back, ISIS had taken over large parts of Syria. They declared a caliphate. Their fighters were making swift advances. So a coalition led by the United States was created to decimate the Islamic State. By 2019, they achieved this goal. So it was a military success. But this coalition had a difficult relationship with Assad, the man who ruled Syria then. He publicly denounced the coalition. He termed it an attack on Syrian sovereignty. There was a hostile coexistence. Each side avoided direct confrontation with the other, and that is about to change. Instead of being at odds, Syria is about to step into this new alliance. And that indicates a major shift, a complete realignment for Syria, if you will. For years, it was part of the Iran-Russia axis. Tehran funded its militias. Moscow gave it diplomatic cover at the UN. Today, that old equation, that old relationship is fading, and Syria is entering America's sphere of influence. This shift also has a military dimension. Reports say the US is working on setting up a military base in Damascus, the Syrian capital. The Americans will get a military base here. They're already carrying out reconnaissance flights. American planes like the C-130 have flown to Damascus. They have checked out a runway in the Syrian capital. American engineers have also inspected it. The US, by the way, already has at least 19 military bases in West Asia. So why does it need one more, and that too in Syria? Well, for a number of reasons. It gives the Americans a foothold in a country that was so far in the opposing camp. Plus, the US can use it for a wide variety of missions: logistics, refueling, surveillance, humanitarian missions. Syria will keep its sovereignty while US forces operate within its borders. That's the idea. Of course, it will have repercussions for Syria and for its neighbors, for other players in the region too. The geopolitical chessboard of West Asia is being flipped. Syria used to be a symbol of resistance against the West. It will now become an American partner. Both Iran and Russia would lose a vital ally. Iran had supply routes through Syria. Now the US military can track them more closely. For Russia, this shift is a bigger challenge. Moscow still has military bases in Syria. For decades, it has shaped Syria's politics. But now it is home to the exiled Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad, the man whom al-Sharah ousted. And here's the interesting bit. Al-Sharah went to Moscow last month. He met President Putin. He promised to respect past deals, and he sought to reset the relationship. But there's no denying that Moscow will have to fight for influence now. The US is serious about engaging Damascus. They're framing it as an effort to rebuild Syria after years of war. But this is, in fact, about reordering the region. It's about creating a new balance of power where America is the dominant force in West Asia. A coup is unfolding in Pakistan. You may not see tanks rolling through Islamabad. You may not see the Prime Minister fleeing, but trust me, this is a coup. A bloodless constitutional coup. Let me tell you what happened today. Pakistan's upper house, the Senate, passed a constitutional amendment, the 27th Amendment. The opposition tried very hard to oppose it. They shouted slogans, they tore up the draft papers, they staged a walkout, but none of it worked.
Second reading of the bill. We may now
3 दिन मतवातर डिबेट हुए हैं सर, अब ये बहस गैर जरूरी है।
Finally, the bill was put to vote. Pakistan's Senate has 96 seats. Each seat gets 1 vote. You need 64 votes to amend the constitution, and guess how many the ruling coalition got? Exactly 64. So the 27th Amendment sailed through. The next stop is the lower house. Again, it's just a formality. This house has 336 seats or votes. You need 224 votes to amend the constitution, and the ruling coalition has 233. So it is just a matter of time. The government wants it done as soon as possible. Reports say it could be passed before this week ends. And what then? Then unlimited power awaits Asim Munir. He is already the most powerful man in Pakistan, but the 27th Amendment would formalize it. It would make him the de facto king of Pakistan. No checks, no oversight, no restrictions. That is why we've called it a coup. Who needs tanks when you have Pakistani politicians? In most countries, leaders would oppose such a takeover, but not in Pakistan. In Pakistan, the Prime Minister abets it. He amends the constitution to coronate his army chief. He willingly hands his country to the military. The question is, how does one amendment do all of this? Because of 3 clauses. Number 1, it gives complete military command to the army chief. He will now command the army, the navy and the air force. Right now, this power is with the president of Pakistan, but Asim Munir will soon get it. Same with the nuclear arsenal. Right now, Pakistan's nukes are controlled by a collegium. It's got military and civilian officials, but not for long. The new nuclear command will be headed by one official, an official appointed on advice from the army chief. So simply put, Asim Munir will be a supreme commander. He will control the military and the nukes. That's the first clause. Next is clause number 2, constitutional protection for 5-star ranks. Basically, your field marshals and admirals of the fleet. If you reach that rank, you get lifelong protection. No lawsuits, no removals, no challenges. Like I said, a de facto king. They might as well have called this the Munir Clause. Because clearly it is tailored for him, for Asim Munir, to grant him complete legal protection. And finally, clause number 3, this amendment will set up a new constitutional court, a court that will supersede the Supreme Court of Pakistan. Top lawyers and judges have criticized this. They say such a move will hijack the Pakistani judiciary. Well, that is the point. Asim Munir wants his lackeys to run the judiciary. He will use this new court to shut out his rivals. But can anyone stop him? Inside the legal setup, no. Outside it, we'll have to find out. Imran Khan's party opposes this change. They have called Asim Munir a mentally unstable dictator. Their plan is to hold protests across the country. We saw similar scenes in 2023. That's when the army plotted to arrest Imran Khan. The protesters responded by attacking army buildings. Yes, the pictures were symbolic, but in the end, the army prevailed. Unless there is an unprecedented mobilization this time, expect the same to happen. And of course, do not expect the world to notice. Western media is busy apologizing to Donald Trump. We are seeing 240 million people slip into a dictatorship. We are seeing an army chief grab unchecked power. We are seeing him take over the nuclear weapons, yet not a single word of criticism. Frankly, this should be front page news everywhere. A maniac field marshal taking over a failed nuclear state. We'll be watching the updates closely. Meanwhile, we continue to track the big story from Delhi. A deadly car blast rocked the national capital earlier this evening. At least 13 people have been killed. Several others have been injured. The explosion happened near the Red Fort, specifically at a red light near the metro station. The Union Home Minister, Amit Shah, has released a statement on the incident. He says all possibilities are being probed. The minister is also planning to visit the blast site soon. Listen to this.
NSG और NIA की टीम FSL के साथ अभी गहन जांच करने का शुरू किया है। आसपास के स्थान के सभी CCTV कैमरा और बाकी सब चीज़ों की जांच के आदेश दे दिए हैं। मेरी CP दिल्ली से भी बात हुई है, स्पेशल ब्रांच के इंचार्ज से भी बात हुई है। CP दिल्ली और स्पेशल ब्रांच के इंचार्ज स्पॉट पर मौजूद हैं। हम सभी संभावनाओं को तराश रहे हैं और सभी संभावनाओं को ध्यान में रखकर इसकी गहन जांच की जाएगी। सभी ऑप्शन की तुरंत जांच होकर नतीजा जो आएगा जांच हम जनता के सामने रखेंगे। मैं कुछ ही देर में स्पॉट पर भी जा रहा हूं और अस्पताल में भी मैं तुरंत जाऊंगा।
And these are the latest images that we have for you. The Union Home Minister of India at a hospital where the injured are being treated. At least 13 people have been killed. This is the LNJP hospital in Delhi. And the Home Minister, like you heard him say just a short while back, is also going to visit the blast site. He says all possibilities are being investigated. This was a major blast at a red light near the metro station near the Red Fort of India. And the nearby cars caught fire. The pictures were quite dramatic. They showed a car engulfed in a fireball. The information is limited and we are only bringing you what has been confirmed officially. There's a lot of speculation as is the case in situations like these, but we are bringing you verified information. This is what the Delhi Police Commissioner has said. At around 7 p.m., a slow-moving vehicle stopped at the red light. Suddenly, it exploded into a fireball. Vehicles beside it were damaged in the blast. And now we've heard from the Union Home Minister saying all possibilities are being investigated, all angles will be probed. Multiple agencies are on the ground right now, including the NSG, that's the National Security Guard, and the NIA, or the National Investigation Agency. The Prime Minister himself is monitoring the situation. He was briefed in the aftermath of this blast. The Central Industrial Security Force, or CISF, has issued a high alert across the country, including at airports, the Delhi Metro, heritage sites, government buildings and other key installations under its security cover. This, one is assuming, is the SOP in situations like these. No agency is taking chances, so the CISF, the Central Industrial Security Force, has issued a high alert across the country, including airports, and this is for people who may be traveling in the days ahead. They may want to take note. High alert at airports in the country, the Delhi Metro, heritage sites, government buildings and other key installations that are managed by the CISF. As things stand, it is not clear how this blast happened. Like I said, it is still a matter of investigation. But the incident itself is quite worrying. India's paramilitary agencies are on high alert. The Home Minister, as you can see, is being briefed by top security officials. The hospital where the Home Minister went, the LNJP hospital, is barely 2 kilometers from the blast site, and the Red Fort, as you would know, is an iconic monument. Every year, the Indian Prime Minister delivers his yearly Independence Day address from there. In the wake of this blast, the entire area around Red Fort has been sealed off. 7 fire tenders were rushed to the scene, all trying to douse the flames. Local authorities urge citizens to stay away from the area. There was panic. This happened more than 2 hours back, and information is still trickling in. We advise viewer discretion, and we'd urge you to wait for confirmed reports and verified information before sharing anything on social media. Remember those 144-pixel videos on YouTube? Those grainy, cloudy clips? That's life in Delhi these days. It's smoggy, it's dusty, and it's polluted. So much so that air purifiers are not a luxury anymore, they're a necessity. Because look at the numbers. On November 6th, Delhi's average air quality was 365. This is for the entire city. In some places, it hovered between 500 and 600. On November 7th, it was 369. On November 8th, it was 388, and yesterday it was 404. That was the average AQI in the capital yesterday. Now let me put this in perspective. AQI is the air quality index. Experts say it should be less than 100. In Delhi, it's 4 times that limit. Now imagine living through this every day. It is so bad that doctors don't have a solution anymore. They're asking people to leave Delhi. If you have some underlying health condition, then stay away until December. That is the advice from doctors. Over the weekend, Delhiites lost patience. Yesterday, protests were held in the capital. The government responded with a crackdown. Dozens of protesters were detained and taken away. I'm sure we haven't seen the last of it, but here's a bigger question. Why isn't Delhi able to solve this? What does that say about our political system? There is no one reason for Delhi's condition. It's basically a deadly cocktail. You've got farm fires, you've got vehicular pollution, you've got industrial emissions, you've got coal power plants. All of these contribute to Delhi's pollution. And yes, geography plays a part too. Delhi is located in the Indo-Gangetic Plains. It is surrounded by tall natural barriers, the biggest being the Himalayas. As a result, the city does not get a lot of wind. So the pollution gets trapped. But of course, none of this is new information. We've known this for years. So why are governments unable to tackle this? It's frankly mind-boggling. India's goal is to become a developed country by 2047. Viksit Bharat is what we call it. Well, the road to that goal passes through Delhi. A capital is not just the seat of power, it is a mascot for your country. A thriving, clean and safe capital sends a message of prosperity, a message of growth. But a choked, polluted capital, it sends a message of inefficiency. Just put yourself in the shoes of an investor or a CEO. These are the headlines you read every year. It's impossible to breathe life in the world's most polluted city. India's capital hunkers down for annual airpocalypse. Death in the air. Life in Delhi. What impression does this give you? We are a $4 trillion economy. We produce thousands of scientists and engineers every year, yet our capital cannot solve pollution. What does that tell you? Either our political system is inefficient or worse, it doesn't care. The fact is, this is not a Delhi problem. It is a national problem. Most world leaders visit New Delhi. Most multilateral summits are held in New Delhi. Most foreign media houses are based in Delhi. Most international flights land in Delhi. I'm sure you get my point. Delhi's pollution is not a local issue. It's also not an urban civic issue. It's a national problem that needs a broad strategy. We already know what causes the pollution. What we need is a holistic response. You bring other states on board, you make a team of diverse experts, you chart a long-term plan, you give options to the political leadership, and most importantly, you stop the blame game, because this is not a partisan problem. Delhi has choked under all political parties. I know we're already late in tackling this, and it's amply clear that policymakers don't care about people's health, so let me try this differently. If we want the world to take us seriously, if we want to advertise our progress, we have to clean up Delhi. Our next story is from Indonesia. It is Southeast Asia's largest economy, a vibrant democracy built after years of military rule. Now that very past has returned to the spotlight. The government of Indonesia has announced a national hero. It's one of their former presidents. His name is Suharto. He was a man who ruled Indonesia for 32 years, and he left behind one of the most divisive legacies in Asia. Now the government wants to honor him, and that decision has split the country. It has sparked protests and reopened old wounds. Tonight we'll tell you who was this man and why his name has triggered Indonesians. The story begins in 1965. Indonesia was gripped by chaos. A failed coup had shaken the country. The military blamed communists for this attempt. What followed was a bloody purge. It lasted almost a year. Around 500,000 people were killed. The military claimed they were foiling a communist revolt, but historians call it one of the worst massacres of the 20th century. In the aftermath, one man emerged as the strongest figure in the country. His name was Suharto. He was a military general. He soon took control of the government. In 1967, he formally became president, and that marked the beginning of his 3-decade rule. Under his rule, Indonesia transformed. Roads were built, industries grew, and poverty fell. For many, Suharto brought stability and prosperity. Supporters still call him the father of development. But that stability came at a cost. Suharto's regime was also known for its brutality. There was no free press, no real political opposition, and no room for dissent. The military oversaw civilian life. Critics of the regime were reportedly arrested, tortured, or killed. Besides, his family was accused of massive corruption. Reports say they amassed up to $45 billion during his rule. But Suharto was never convicted. The court said he was too ill to stand trial, and in the year 2008, he died. But for many Indonesians, the story never ended there. Today, nearly 3 decades after his fall from power, that division is back. The current president of Indonesia is a man called Prabowo Subianto. He has honored Suharto as a national hero. And here's where things get interesting. Prabowo was Suharto's protege, also his former son-in-law. Prabowo too was a general, and Suharto was his boss. And that connection makes this honor highly controversial. The ceremony took place at the State Palace in Jakarta. Suharto's children accepted the award on his behalf. Officials praised him as a hero of independence and development. They said, even heroes had shortcomings. But many Indonesians strongly disagree. Many took to the streets in protest, mostly students and activists. They held placards that read, Suharto is not a hero. They chanted against what they called a whitewash of history. Take a look.
Hidup korban! Jangan diam!
Coba teman-teman yang lain dipikir dulu.
Let's all think about it. If someone who committed serious human rights violations were to be considered a hero, would that be appropriate? I don't think that alone is a valid indicator of hero status. What were Suharto's services?
Apa jasanya Suharto itu apa?
Critics say the move normalizes impunity, but the government still defends its decision. And that makes Indonesia's reckoning with its past even harder. Because this is about more than just Suharto. It's about the kind of country Indonesia wants to be. A democracy that moved on from military rule, now grappling with its return to politics. Under President Prabowo, many see echoes of that era. He has boosted defense spending, given the military more power, and revived programs run by security agencies. His government calls it strong leadership, but critics call it a step back. And that is why this controversy cuts so deep, because it is not just about a title. It is about Indonesia's direction and how it remembers its past. We continue to track the big story from Delhi. A deadly car blast rocked the national capital a short while back. At least 13 people have been killed. Several others have been injured. The explosion happened near the Red Fort, specifically at a red light near the metro station there. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reacted to this. Let me quote from his statement. Condolences to those who have lost their loved ones in the blast in Delhi earlier this evening. May the injured recover at the earliest. Those affected are being assisted by authorities. Reviewed the situation with Home Minister Amit Shah and other officials. The Prime Minister is reviewing the situation. Meanwhile, officials have identified the vehicle that exploded. They say it was a Hyundai i20 car. Home Minister Amit Shah has also released a statement on the incident. He says all possibilities are being probed. The minister has already visited the hospital to meet the survivors. He also plans to inspect the blast site soon. Listen to this.
NSG और NIA की टीम FSL के साथ अभी गहन जांच करने का शुरू किया है। आसपास के स्थान के सभी CCTV कैमरा और बाकी सब चीज़ों की जांच के आदेश दे दिए हैं। मेरी CP दिल्ली से भी बात हुई है, स्पेशल ब्रांच के इंचार्ज से भी बात हुई है। CP दिल्ली और स्पेशल ब्रांच के इंचार्ज स्पॉट पर मौजूद हैं। हम सभी संभावनाओं को तराश रहे हैं और सभी संभावनाओं को ध्यान में रखकर इसकी गहन जांच की जाएगी। सभी ऑप्शन की तुरंत जांच होकर नतीजा जो आएगा जांच हम जनता के सामने रखेंगे। मैं कुछ ही देर में स्पॉट पर भी जा रहा हूं और अस्पताल में भी मैं तुरंत जाऊंगा।
As you can see, the pictures show a car engulfed in a fireball. There's limited information at this point on how this happened, but here's what the Delhi Police Commissioner has said. At around 7 p.m. local time, a slow-moving vehicle stopped at the red light. Suddenly, it exploded into a fireball. Even vehicles beside it were damaged in the blast. Multiple agencies are on the ground as we speak, including the NSG, the National Security Guard, and the NIA, the National Investigation Agency. As things stand, we don't know how this blast happened, but the incident itself is, of course, worrying. India's paramilitary agencies are on high alert. We also have an update from the CISF, the Central Industrial Security Force. They have issued a high alert across the country at airports, metros, heritage sites and government buildings. And the Red Fort, of course, is one such iconic monument. We're told the entire area around the Red Fort has been sealed off. 7 fire tenders were rushed to the scene, which tells you something about the scale of the impact. Local authorities have urged citizens to stay away from the area. This is a developing story. We'll be tracking it for you. Our next story is from the world of finance. It's about gold, but not the kind you wear or store at home. This one exists on your phone. It's called digital gold. Millions of Indians are buying it every month. It looks easy and feels safe. But India's market regulator says it may not be. SEBI has issued a warning. SEBI is the Securities and Exchange Board of India. It has issued a warning against digital gold. It says these products are completely unregulated, meaning SEBI does not monitor them, it does not license them, and it cannot protect investors if something goes wrong. Experts say this warning is timely. So what exactly is digital gold? Why is the warning coming now? And what risks are you taking when you buy gold online? Here's our report.
Gold has always been India's favourite obsession. But in recent years, a new version of it has taken over. It is called digital gold. It's shiny, easy, and just a click away. You can buy it on an app with as little as 10 rupees. But here's the catch. India's market regulator says it's risky. The Securities and Exchange Board of India, or SEBI, has issued a public warning. It told investors to be careful while buying digital gold or e-gold online. The reason? SEBI says these products are completely unregulated. In simple words, SEBI does not monitor, control, or approve them. They are not securities, not commodity derivatives, and not part of SEBI's jurisdiction. That means if a digital gold platform collapses or fails to deliver your gold, SEBI cannot protect you. So, what exactly is digital gold? It's a fintech product that lets you buy small amounts of gold online. One can buy it through apps like Paytm, PhonePe, or Google Pay. You pay money, and the app claims to store the same amount of real gold in a vault for you. You can sell it back anytime, or even ask for physical gold delivery later. It sounds convenient, and that's why it's booming. In 2024, India reportedly invested around 1.5 lakh crore rupees, or about $16.9 billion in gold. Out of that, about 13,888 crore rupees, or $1.57 billion, was reportedly invested in digital gold. That's nearly 10% of all gold investments in India. UPI transactions for digital gold have exploded too. They have seen a 377% jump in just 16 months, touching almost 100 million transactions by August this year. But SEBI's warning is a reminder: not everything online is safe. Digital gold works outside the financial rulebook. There's no law to check if the vaults really hold your gold. There's no audit, and no guarantee of what happens if a company shuts down. Experts say that creates two main risks. First, counterparty risk. That is, if the company or vault fails, your gold could disappear. Second, operational risk. That is, technical errors, fraud, or purity disputes. And with no regulation, you have no investor protection, no SEBI complaint system, no compensation fund, no official help. By contrast, SEBI has regulated gold products that are safe and transparent. These include gold exchange-traded funds, electronic gold receipts, and exchange-traded gold derivatives. All of them are sold through SEBI-registered intermediaries and come under strict supervision. That's why SEBI is drawing a line. It isn't against buying gold. It's against buying gold without oversight. Because in this space, trust alone isn't enough. Experts say SEBI's caution is timely, a step to close the regulatory gap in India's fast-growing financial market. For now, SEBI isn't banning digital gold. It's simply asking investors to be careful. Because while gold remains India's favorite asset, not every investment in it comes with protection.
The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Just ask the BBC, the self-proclaimed gold standard of journalism, the flag bearer of neutrality. If you ask the BBC, they don't even know what bias means. That's how uncorrupted they are. Or so they claimed. Recently, an unprecedented scandal hit the BBC, a scandal that has claimed its top bosses, a scandal that has forced them to admit bias and apologize. Let's start from the top. Last week, The Telegraph published a report. It contained claims made by the BBC's former advisor, a man named Michael Prescott. Prescott's criticism revolved around one incident, an episode on Donald Trump. It covered his controversial speech from January 2021, the one before the Capitol riots, and it had a problem. The BBC team cut the clip in a peculiar way. See if you can spot it.
We're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down. Anyone you want, but I think right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them.
Two problems there. First, that BBC clip is a mix. It stitches two different remarks together, remarks that came almost 1 hour apart. That's the first problem. Secondly, it omitted an important part, the part where Trump asked his supporters to be peaceful. The Telegraph report claims that this was done on purpose. And on cue, the backlash began. The UK's Conservative Party wanted heads to roll. Over in the US, Trump's team called the BBC 100% fake news.
This purposefully dishonest, selectively edited clip by the BBC is further evidence that they are total 100% fake news that should no longer be worth the time on the television screens of the great people of the United Kingdom.
This controversy started last week, but surprisingly, the BBC said nothing. No defense, no clarification, and no pushback. Then yesterday night came the big announcement. Two bosses at the BBC stepped down. Director General Tim Davie and CEO of News, Deborah Turnus. Both of them resigned yesterday night. They took responsibility for the edited clip. At the same time, they rejected any systemic bias.
I would like to say it has been the privilege of my career to serve as the CEO of BBC News and to work with our brilliant team of journalists. I stepped down over the weekend because the buck stops with me. But I'd like to make one thing very clear. BBC News is not institutionally biased. That's why it's the world's most trusted news provider.
Today, the BBC went a step ahead. The organization's chair apologized for what happened. Let me quote from his statement. The conclusion of that deliberation is that we accept that the way the speech was edited did give the impression of a direct call for violent action. The BBC would like to apologize for that error of judgment. Needless to say, US President Trump is thrilled. He claims all BBC journalists are corrupt. He also accused them of trying to meddle in the elections. And what is London saying? Well, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's office has responded. They say accountability is key for the BBC. At the same time, he rejected claims of systemic bias. And that seems to be the strategy here. Accept blame in this case, but reject the notion of systemic bias. That's what they're trying to do. Frankly, that sounds counterproductive. Let me explain why. Yes, the BBC edited Trump's clip. Yes, they omitted some parts of his speech, but overall, the story stands. In 2021, even the US Congress tried to convict Trump. The House found him guilty of inciting a riot, and in the Senate, 57 lawmakers voted to find him guilty. That includes 7 Republican senators too. So the BBC story is hardly an oversell. Despite the edit, which is problematic, you would expect them to stand by it. As far as bias goes, the BBC has done far worse. They have refused to call Hamas terrorists. They call the terrorists in Pahalgam gunmen and militants. They call Jammu and Kashmir Indian administered. All of this suggests a systemic bias. Instead of admitting any of that, the BBC bent the knee to Donald Trump. They portrayed this as a one-off. Just think about it. If this was some other world leader, would these bosses have resigned? Maybe a prime minister in Asia or a president in Africa. Do you think the BBC bosses would have resigned? Absolutely not. So this is not some moment of self-reflection for the BBC. This is selective reflection. They're not taking responsibility. They're just evading Trump's anger. Now let's talk about climate change. The Philippines is underwater again. Another typhoon has slammed into the islands. It's called Fang Wong. More than 1 million people have been evacuated and at least 5 people have been confirmed dead. This is the 21st storm to hit the country this year. The 21st this year. Every few weeks, a new storm arrives. It is stronger, wetter and deadlier. Scientists have warned about this for years. A warmer planet means stronger storms. And yet, halfway across the world, leaders are paying lip service to climate change. They've gathered in Brazil for COP30. It's the Global Climate Summit. These leaders are meeting in the Amazon to talk about saving the planet, but the reality is hard to ignore. The biggest polluters are not even at the table. The same pledges are being repeated, the same deadlines are being pushed, and the action the world needs is still missing. Here's a report.
The Philippines is underwater again. Typhoon Fungwong has torn across the islands with winds close to 200 kilometers an hour. It is the 21st storm to hit the country this year. More than 1.4 million people have been evacuated, and at least 5 people have been confirmed dead. For 2 days, relentless rain and wind battered communities across the islands. Rivers burst their banks, cutting off towns. Power lines collapsed, plunging thousands into darkness. Rescue teams used boats to reach families stranded in their homes. It is a scene the country has seen too many times before, and too often this year. Just days earlier, another typhoon tore through the same region. That storm, called Kalmegi, killed more than 200 people and left thousands in makeshift shelters. Many were still living there when Typhoon Fungwong arrived. For them, it wasn't a new disaster, just the next one. The ground was still soaked, the rivers were still high, and the damage from one storm simply merged into the next. Each season now feels shorter, each recovery harder. Because in the Philippines, the break between storms has almost disappeared, experts say the pattern is no longer random. Warmer oceans mean stronger typhoons. A hotter atmosphere carries more moisture and more rainfall. For millions in the country, climate change is not a theory. It is the weather outside their door. Yet, while the Philippines counts the cost, another kind of storm is unfolding thousands of kilometers away. In Brazil, world leaders are meeting under the banner of COP30, the annual climate summit. It is being held in Belém, on the edge of the Amazon rainforest. The idea, to find solutions to the same crisis that is now flooding homes across the world. But the summit is already showing familiar cracks. The United States has not sent a senior delegation. Around 160 countries are represented only by ministers or deputies. And the targets discussed a decade ago in Paris remain largely unmet. Brazil's president says he brought the meeting to the Amazon so that delegates could see the reality. He's calling for a global fund to protect rainforests and a roadmap to phase down fossil fuels. However, the discussions sound much like those from past summits. Funds promised are still unpaid. Timelines are still disputed. And the gap between words and action keeps widening. It has been 30 years since the first COP meeting. 30 years of plans, declarations, and photo opportunities. Yet global emissions keep rising, and the storms keep coming. This week, the contrast is impossible to miss. In one part of the world, families are fleeing rising water. In another, delegates are debating rising costs. One country is fighting to survive another typhoon. The rest are still fighting over who should pay for prevention. Climate change is no longer a projection on paper. It is a pattern in the sky, in the soil, and in the storms. And as talks continue in air-conditioned rooms, the Philippines is once again cleaning up after the consequences.
Before we wrap the show, here's a quick roundup of the big news that we're tracking from Delhi. The national capital has been rocked by a deadly car blast today. The incident has put the city on edge. I know there's a lot of speculation and fear out there, so we'll bring you the complete factual roundup. Only information that has been verified officially. Officials say at least 13 people have been killed in the explosion, plus several others have been injured. The explosion happened near the Red Fort, specifically at a red light near the metro station. Officials have identified the vehicle that exploded. They say it was a Hyundai i20 car at around 6:52 p.m. local time. This car was moving slowly at a red light. Suddenly, it exploded into a fireball. Even vehicles beside it were damaged in the blast. At 6:55 p.m., the first responders were called in, so 3 minutes after the explosion. Around 7 fire tenders were rushed to the spot. By 7:29 p.m., they managed to douse the fire. The first responders say Around 6 cars, 2 electric rickshaws and 1 auto rickshaw were also damaged. A short while back, Prime Minister Narendra Modi released a statement on what happened. Let me quote from what he said. Condolences to those who have lost their loved ones in the blast in Delhi earlier this evening. May the injured recover at the earliest. Those affected are being assisted by authorities. Reviewed the situation with Home Minister Amit Shah and other officials. Union Home Minister Amit Shah has also released a statement on this incident. He says all possibilities are being probed. The minister has already visited the hospital to meet the survivors. He will also inspect the blast site soon. Listen to this.
NSG और NIA की टीम FSL के साथ अभी गहन जांच करने का शुरू किया है। आसपास के स्थान के सभी CCTV कैमरा और बाकी सब चीज़ों की जांच के आदेश दे दिए हैं। मेरी CP दिल्ली से भी बात हुई है, स्पेशल ब्रांच के इंचार्ज से भी बात हुई है। CP दिल्ली और स्पेशल ब्रांच के इंचार्ज स्पॉट पर मौजूद हैं। हम सभी संभावनाओं को तराश रहे हैं और सभी संभावनाओं को ध्यान में रखकर इसकी गहन जांच की जाएगी। सभी ऑप्शन की तुरंत जांच होकर नतीजा जो आएगा जांच हम जनता के सामने रखेंगे। मैं कुछ ही देर में स्पॉट पर भी जा रहा हूं और अस्पताल में भी मैं तुरंत जाऊंगा।
Multiple agencies are on the ground right now, including the NSG, the National Security Guard, and the NIA, or the National Investigation Agency. As things stand, we still don't know how this blast happened, but the incident itself is worrying. India's paramilitary agencies are on high alert. The CISF, or the Central Industrial Security Force, has issued a high alert across the country at airports, metros, heritage sites and government buildings, including the Red Fort, which happens to be one such iconic monument. We are told the entire area around the Red Fort has been sealed off. Local authorities have urged citizens to stay away from the area. This is a developing story. We'll keep tracking the updates for you here on Firstpost.
Want the facts?
The latest developments?
News that gets straight to the point.
Well, we've got all three just for you. This is Firstpost Live, a brand new show, your window into what really matters.
Don't miss it.